welcome back to the Psyche podcast with me, Hannah, where we're all about sharing honest conversations about mental well-being, real experiences to inform, inspire, and strategies to empower you to prioritize your own mental well-being and to live a joyful, meaningful, and healthy life. We're back with another strategy roundup episode. So we did one of these at the end of the first season, and we're not at the end of the second season yet. I think this is going to be a much longer season. We've already got a lot of episodes recorded, ready to come out to you at some point. This is just a bonus strategy roundup partway through so that it doesn't become an epic episode all by itself. So as we've done before, we always ask guests to leave some top tips that they'd recommend people try out. And we're very much a toolbox approach. So we don't believe that there's a one-size-fits-all approach to mental well-being. Every guest that comes in, we ask them to put some things in the toolbox, some ideas, and then you can just try them out and see what works for you. Some things will, some things won't, and that's absolutely fine. We want to just give you lots of ideas of things that you can try out. Here it is, the second strategy roundup episode. And to start with, we're going back to episode 15, where we were joined by author Cam Knight, who was talking all about managing your mind mayhem. So here are his top tips.
The number one tip I would recommend is self-talk. And I would even go as far as to say, if people only focused on affirming their self-talk statements and nothing else, they would get a lot more results than applying other stuff. So I think that's number one. That's something I always talk about. 2 is be consistent. Anything that you do, show up on a regular basis, whether that's every day, every other day, or at the very least every week. Remember what I had said, you can come in with mediocre effort regularly and get far better results than bringing your A game intermittently. And I think number 3 is going to be focusing on goals that you plan to stick with for the long term. You might set a goal to learn photography or get better at photography. Only do that if your plan is to, do photography for a while, because if you spend a few months learning photography and then stop, you'll forget. So why spend all that time learning something that you're going to lose anyways? The longer you stick with something, the longer you'll be able to hold on to. So those would be my top 3: self-talk, consistency, and focus on activities and goals that you plan to stick with for the long term.
So for episode 16, it was a solo episode because I was thinking a lot about changes because it was the new year and about sometimes there being resistance to that change. So here is a bit of a top tip about making changes. Change is difficult. Change can be scary. Not changing can be scary. The new possibilities can be scary. And something I spoke about yesterday in an interview that I've recorded, which won't actually come out till next week. But we talk about pigeonholing people in boxes. If you think about the people that you know, we do have our own image of them, of what we expect from them, what we think they're like. And if you're making changes, you're disrupting someone else's image of you. And that can be unsettling because if you think about it, it's upsetting our sort of worldview and our understanding of the people around us. So even if we're not changing and someone else is, it can still unsettle us because we have to change then our perception of the person because they're developing, they're growing, they're changing how they are, who they are, what they do. So that can be unsettling in itself. But your changes, if you're making positive life changes and someone else is being quite negative, one, it could be that they are deliberately doing it to sabotage you, possibly because they want to keep you in that pigeonhole, in that box that they've got you in. But quite often, they're maybe not aware of what they're doing and the effect it's having. So if someone is changing and that feels threatening to us, we can unconsciously, so outside of our awareness, we can have these defenses. And it could be that these things are coming out, that they are almost sabotaging because it's threatening that you're changing, because maybe it's holding a mirror up to them and it's showing them that they need to make changes in that area. And that's difficult, that's scary. So unconsciously, It's a defense to protect them from that need to examine themselves and think about the changes that really they want to make or feel that they should, but they're just not ready to, maybe. So that could be why you might feel that people are being malicious, are being mean and not encouraging, and even maybe trying to bring you down. It could be deliberate, or it could be that it's this defense mechanism from their ego just trying to protect itself because they're not ready to change. And I guess I just want to finish on maybe a bit of a cliched saying, but the idea that, the people that mind don't matter and the people that matter don't mind. And if you make changes and people find it threatening, it might be that for a little while that it affects the relationship. But the right people, if they love you and if they care about you, will support you. They will want the best for you. And that might mean a little period of adjustment for them to sort of come to grips with the new you, or the slightly different you to what they are used to, if you like. But I just think, my family and my friends, I love them. I want the best for them. You'll probably hear me saying exactly the same thing next week. Sorry about that. But I want the best from them. So I'm prepared to handle a little bit of that discomfort that we can feel when people change and it unsettles us. I want the best for them. And hopefully the people around you also feel the same, that they are happy for you when you make changes. And the people who do really mind maybe are not the people that you need around you to support you, or maybe don't fit with who you are presenting as, who you are showing to the world. And I think that if I look through my life, I have very dear friends, and I have some that unfortunately I've lost touch with. And maybe as we go through life, we grow apart from people, we grow towards people. And maybe if they're just at a different point, they drift away, and the people that are around you are the ones who really see you as you are. They really support you. They want you to be the best you. And it might be that if there is someone who is bringing you down, whether it's deliberate or that they're not aware of, maybe it's about thinking about yourself and what you need, and maybe taking some space from that person. And hopefully it's just temporary. Maybe it is the longer term thing if it is something that's bringing you down or is holding you back. But I think that's a whole different conversation to get into. So that was about changes, and episode 17 was a double Hannah episode. I was joined by Hannah Hassler, who was talking about creativity, which is her big area, and about the importance of that. So here are her top tips.
Let's see, in terms of kind of a business entrepreneurship, one of my biggest tips around that is to make decisions and then move forward. So stop cycling back from them and don't let basic decisions be your stumbling blocks all of the time. Mm-hmm. So that would be my business advice, both personally and business wise. I would say, be open to creative possibility. Sometimes that means identifying the boxes we're in that we haven't even, kind of recognized for ourselves. Sitting down with our businesses or in our lives and looking at what are the things that I'm doing, because that kind of makes up a lot of your life, what you actually do. And, how do those fit into it? Why am I doing it? Is it just because everybody does it? Is it because it feels so good to me and my business? So I think that would be a huge tip. And then just personally, I would say develop a practice of checking in with yourself and being responsive to what you find, right? It's one thing to check in and be like, oh, wow, I'm really tense. I'm under a lot of stress, but I have a huge to-do list, so I'm powering through, and just, kind of making your own self feel unheard. So checking in, and if you find, gosh, I'm not in a good place, find some sort of margin space to do something positive for yourself. If that means 5 minutes of meditation or 2 minutes sitting outside, breathing fresh air, it doesn't have to be whole day's a spa day. Like, we can't do that, but check in with yourself and find a way, even if it's a 2-minute way, to be responsive to what you actually learn.
Yeah, and I think that checking in is something, and I think the key thing you said there was not just checking in, but doing something with that. So when you check in and things aren't right, not just going, oh well, never mind. Because I think even if you stop and just take 5 deep breaths, that has a massive impact. But I think we quite often just stop, and it doesn't need to be a huge amount of time just to get a bit of centering, I think was what you said earlier, that centering and grounding a little bit. And yeah, I think that's one I'm going to take away about not just recognizing, but doing something with that awareness.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I'm so glad.
So episode 18, I've not included any top tips from. That was a bonus episode for Time to Talk Day. So I've left that one out of this as it was quite focused. It might be something that we loop back to for a special awareness days type strategy roundup. But then episode 19, we were joined by Jess Critchlow, and her area is soft skills and the importance of those. So here are her top tips. And I also am just going to say that on our website, we now have a recommend page where we recommend things that help us. And for confidence, I've put Jess's details under there because I've done one of her confidence workshops that she did, which I found to be amazing to think about confidence myths. So a little plug for Jess in here, but here are her top tips.
So what I'd say is around strategies, there's really just one that I want to really, really emphasize and leave your listeners with. So soft skills are so key to your success, your happiness at work, your good enoughness at work, all of the things that are important. I mean, yes, to formal education, I'm not knocking that by any stretch, but you need to be able to build your interpersonal skills. And here's what I'd say around that is find a way to practice them, like a safe space to practice them. And if that's not your work, that's fine. It doesn't have to be your workplace if that's not, a psychologically safe, like those examples we gave at the beginning of our conversation. If it's not a safe place, it's fine, but you have to do it for yourself, for your own career, for your own happiness, for your own ability to show up at work and not just want to floods of tears. By the way, some of you might need to quit your job to enable that. But anyways, that's a whole other podcast. Practice them. Okay. So some ways you can do that is one is knowledge. So podcast, books, blogs, just find out more about some of these skills. So whether, whatever the thing is that is sparking your interest. So communication, leadership, feedback, dealing with difficult people, whatever the thing is that's kind of nagging at you. There's tons of free resources out there, tons of if there's a book you love, go to your library. You don't have to spend money. Really, you really don't. 2, find a safe space to practice. So that can be paid. I highly, highly recommend people find a coach. That would be, I'm not a coach, but I'm a huge proponent of finding a coach that creates that space where you can practice some of this stuff and say it out loud and get some feedback. It can be just a colleague. It can be, some of you are lucky enough that you can practice some of this stuff with your manager, but find a space where you can go, I've got a really awkward presentation coming up where I have to share some tough news. Can I do it for you? And you give me some feedback on what's going well and what doesn't work. Find the space to practice it. And the third thing I'd say too, around these interpersonal skills is, there's this sort of myth that they work the same as technical skills, you're just suddenly going to be confident public speaking, or you're going to be confident having difficult conversations, or you're going to be confident negotiating. I have never seen that in my work. I haven't seen people get confident. I've seen them get more confident. But when someone is confident in their ability to deliver feedback, usually what that actually means is they're no longer trying bigger things. When you're truly confident in something, probably not stretching anymore. And so don't make, I need to be confident in this thing, the goal, because that's A, impossible, and B, is actually probably a bad thing. What you want is being totally nervous is absolutely expected and fine. That's because your body telling you you're about to do something brave. Keep going at it. Don't take that to be a message that this isn't something you're supposed to be doing. It's just a message that you're being brave. So get the knowledge, practice, and don't misinterpret the signals from your body.
Because I think we can spend so long getting the technical knowledge that the softer skills get forgotten.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so actually seeking out that knowledge important. And I think then the practicing is something that quite often there aren't those opportunities to do, or again, if you're somewhere that doesn't have such an emphasis on the importance of them. Cool. And with your third point, I was thinking of Adele, so the singer, and I don't know if you know this, but I don't know her personally. It's just
I wish you did, because she's awesome. But yes, okay.
So she is amazing, but she gets so nervous before she performs. She has massive stage fright, and she is so amazing at what she does, but she still has those nerves. She doesn't have complete confidence. So I think it can be natural, and I guess maybe, as you were saying, that if you get to that point where you're not feeling any sense of nerves, then you need to then take the next step, because maybe you got so used to where you're at that you're then maybe playing too small, and it's about that stretch and that challenge.
And the last thing I'll say on that too, and I love that example of Adele, because come on, talk about someone top of their field. Oh my gosh, she's so incredible. When we do suddenly meet this, I feel confident in this, I know what I'm doing, I'm good. The other danger of that is that becomes a little bit part of our person, like our identity, and we don't seek out other feedback. We get almost a little threatened when someone says, oh, your presentation, because, I identify as someone who enjoys public speaking. I feel like I'm going to throw up before I go out on stage, but it's something I seek out because I enjoy it. And if I then make the story that this is something I'm good at and it is part of my worth, the minute someone says, I've got a little bit of feedback for you, there was like the arc of that presentation, I kind of got a little lost in it. Suddenly, instead of saying, that's really useful, thank you, I can take that now, I'm like, you've just threatened my self-worth, right? So now I'm in amygdala, I'm in fight, flight, or freeze. I'm not